Since I'm throwing stones, right? That's so funny. Let's talk about the two stones that we have been talking about, right? The pineal gland and the pituitary gland, the jasper stone and the sardine stone. This also goes hand in hand with the urim and the, I'm probably saying this so wrong, Thummim? I don't know how to pronounce that. And then also the stones for the pillars, right? For Jacob, when Jacob was, where he set up the stones for pillars. So in Genesis, right, in Genesis chapter 28, verses 18 through 22, Jacob, right, at Bethel, which means house of God, right, he set up he anointed the stone for a pillar, right? Here, Genesis 28, verses 18 through 22. And Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, right, which means house of God. And it goes on. If God will be with me and will keep me in his way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God, right? Then he set up a second stone, right, for a pillar, and this is in Genesis chapter 31. Okay, Genesis chapter 31, verses 45, right? And this is when he made the covenant with Laban, right? And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brothers, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it, I don't know how to pronounce that. And Jacob called it Gilead. Don't know how to pronounce that either. But in Strong's, it means witness pile or witness heap. With that being said, given what we learned in Beersheba and the 7 witnesses, I equate this second stone from Genesis 31 with Beersheba and with the crown chakra and the 7th. And I equate the stone for a pillow that he used at Bethel, the house of God, with your 6th chakra and your pineal gland. So forgive me for mispronouncing this, but Urim and Thummim, I don't know how to pronounce it, right? But it means revelation and truth, or lights and perfection, right? And this goes hand in hand, again, like I said, with the pineal gland and with the pituitary gland, right? And with the 2 stones, the same thing that we just learned with Jacob, right? So this tells the same thing, right? God's number of perfection being 7. So we can equate Thummim or whatever with perfection or with truth, whereas Urim goes hand in hand with light, which would be the 6th chakra, right? Your pineal gland, and revelation. So the interesting thing about these are, these were also used, the priests would use them for like divination, right? To get yes and no answers from God. But the other interesting thing about this is these were also used to cast lots, right? So like with the scapegoat, Azazel, the one that the sin would be placed on and they would be set free into the wilderness. And then with the sin offering, which would be slain, right? Obviously, the white stone would have fallen for the sin offering, and the black stone would have fallen for the scapegoat, for Azazel, right? So the other interesting thing about that is the priests would keep them and wear them. Shout out to my mom for bringing this up to me last night, or I would have not thought of it, but this is huge. So the interesting thing about this is they kept them under their breastplate, right? And so what does this mean, right? What does this say? The fact that they were placed under the breastplate is what I've been saying. It tells the same story about all these stones, like from your root chakra to your crown, right? It tells this exact same thing as the sardine stone and the jasper stone. It's the yin and the yang, right? It's the duality of man. It's your left brain, your right brain, your lower man, your higher man, your flesh man, your spirit man, your masculine and your feminine, right? And so this they're all telling the same story, just in a different way, which I think is beautiful, right? And it gives it more depth. But there's the other interesting thing is these same stones, right? Your pineal gland and your pituitary gland. Did you know that those were the stones that in Matthew chapter 4, verses 3 through 4, when Satan came to tempt Jesus, right? After he had fasted, and he was like, if you be the Son of Man, turn these stones or these rocks into bread. Well, the funny thing is he actually did. And those stones or rocks that he turned into bread was the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. The other interesting thing, and these stones themselves are symbolized by John the Baptist, right? John the Baptist, John the Revelator, okay? Symbolizes, right, Urim, which means light, which means revelation, right? Bethel, right? The pineal gland, your honey, right? John, he ate locusts and wild honey, right? Whereas Jesus, who had the 7 spirits, right? The fullness, 7, the Thummim, or however you pronounce that word, right? Truth and perfection, right? 7, the pituitary gland, right? He had the wife, right? John was just the friend of the bridegroom, but the bridegroom has the wife. He had the wife, right? Wisdom. So those two were a representation of those very rocks, or stones, if you will. Anyways, I hope you found the beauty in that, and this was helpful to you. I enjoy these things. I don't know, and I just found that very funny, right? Like, Jesus actually did turn those stones into bread. Like, it's just, I found it to be funny. Anyway, never mind me, I'm just throwing stones. Oh my gosh, you know how I do. I'm not done yet because it just flows. It just comes, and so I have to get it out, right? Well, okay, sitting here, and I was looking at it. I was like, am I really going, I'm questioning myself, right? I'm like, does that really line up with the 6 chakras? Is this really the pineal gland? Bethel, the house of God. And I was going over, thinking about all the things Jacob had said after that. But remember, Jesus having the fullness and being the 7th, right? So Bethel, your 6th chakra and your pineal gland, right? Called the house of God. But remember, Jesus having the fullness and how he added on to his Father's house. So Bethel being the old house of God, right? Or not the old house, but well, technically, right? Because he was wounded in the house of his friends, right? So anyway.